since I can't sit and do a live podcast without being interrupted every day, every time of the day for this, that, and the third, I would prefer to just do this here. That way it becomes a lot easier and more concentrated. Not on the game, but just doing them live on Twitch instead of them being live segments at my home or trying to find a webcam or something in order to do these on. I can do them in a general structuralized sitting like how I was doing them years ago in the Transformers scene. The checkpoint here is a starting point for a small series that I'm seeking to do, right? In gathering varying and open-minded people that seek to have a series of discussions regarding either the fighting game community or Destiny or Rainbow Six Siege or Transformers or Call of Duty, all relevant, competitive, and casual point of interests that have delved through the channel once upon a time, right? And then I aim to kind of open up that avenue for people. Don't even have to be generally competitive, but are just in tune with either the game or the community to naturally talk about things as they will, right? And so the key is finding a lot of different people to bring on roughly to each week for what I feel has like been a little while now that I've been wanting to set this up, but it's barely getting through said week to start off with the one or two people that are here or that are around but they're not communicating with me when they're actually free, and it gets really annoying sitting here trying to play digital phone tag with people. And so I seek to go on ahead and have episode 0 here, and I don't know whether or not this will be a two-parter or not. It depends on how I feel when I get to the end of this, but I decided to go on ahead and launch the premiere version of this with myself. That way it can probably allocate the proper tone in which to just be expressive of yourself and to stand in your light. I don't know how long you guys out there have been following the channel, but I've gone down this route before in hosting a podcast series back generally for, like I said, the Transformers and the Destiny scenes years ago, in bridging generations to those communities through the set expanded lore that was unraveled in the communities themselves. The good, the bad, the indifferent, and the insane all equally. Got to interview different people, get different perspectives. I have a general blueprint here, but we don't necessarily have to follow it, if that makes sense. Between Destiny 2, past and present, or Rainbow Six Siege, past and present, Transformers, past, present, and future, Call of Duty, past, present, and future, Kingdom Hearts, or RPGs, or JRPGs and their expansions, the FGC of the past, present, and future every day, the premise of PSN and console versus PC, or looking at gaming communities and their current state of play or activity, or even like the player base, are they pushing or holding back progress for their own communities? It's a whole tapestry that can be written out of all of this. And this one idea can actually follow my channel's general rhetoric of having visited the comp scenes of so many titles I saw in interest at one point or another. Again, the tricky part is just playing around my schedule and other people's schedules, or explaining how a podcast works when many people seeking to try it out haven't been on one before, or seem scared or confused on what to do or say when you simply just talk and allow the thoughts to blossom naturally. It shouldn't feel forced, right? That's not how general dialogue happens or begins. It's how the inability to start conversations continue. So I thought I'll just do this myself and set the tone for what I seek. Going over personally, like what got me here, like what got me into making content all the time, or I'm TOing for me and my brand. I'm competing. I do coaching from time to time. Like, why am I still doing it? Why am I passionate about this? So let's start from the beginning and navigate to the current timeline somewhat. The story of Destiny or Transformers Hardlocked to my journey, I'll leave out of this to some degree because I have covered it numerous different times regarding my origin story from Transformers and my origin story in Destiny, both of which that are scattered across the YouTube channel. And so I don't really seek to open up a lot of that again for the sake of this, when I can actually just link those to this VOD in future tense. That way you guys are able to take your time to listen to those pieces of different parts of my online journey. Those understanding Transformers being the founding part of the channel, and then Destiny being the following part of the channel, continuing my competitive rhetoric across online. So, back at the beginning of the journey. Oh, before I do get into this, I probably may take a break at one or two points in order to get a drink, but I'll let you guys know when I do that. So, back at the beginning of the journey, I want to take us back to 2007, to the closing part and end of high school, and that was when I won my first school tournament, and then a bit after that. So, like, playing video games competitively or even trying to go pro, it was a philosophical joke back then in those times. It was an outright joke that people laughed at you for saying. People never took you seriously wanting to achieve something like that because games had no value to that degree. Despite the once-in-a-blue moon area where Game Informer would talk about a game competition, you couldn't delve into any of these things. You couldn't. It was a concept that was only in excessively select areas that were exclusive. And the problem is, like, trying to play games casually, or when you're one of the best players in your friends and groups, you feel really good and you carry yourself in a respected disposition reflecting that, right? When I was a kid, it was my dream to be a gamer, like the ones I read about in a lot of the off-brand magazines or early Game Informer editions, like we all used to read in the early years of our youth. The concept of gaming seriously or attempting to strive for a prize pool or some type of gain, especially with games costing so much then or now, pick a poison, wasn't existent or in a big light to have a mainstay takeoff. So I decided to write about it through the later half of my high school years into my college years and seek to see how it likely could be, even for something that's not real to be made into a practical reality, right? I was taught that you could be anything you wanted to be, so this was a part of my goal. The problem was that there was no compass getting started. Here in Maryland, the concept of gaming professionally or seeking it as an occupation is almost to generally non-existent. You're literally wasting money trying to find the answer normally without a compass to help navigate. You have to kind of go somewhere and see how this fits, or what's the morality, or its impact, or yours as the innovator. How does it affect physical and mental health? How will this affect mine? How long can you do this for? Could I get to a professional point with this? These are things you have to think about the longer you're in the field for it. Or if you're the only one in the field, these are things that you think about as you continue to chart your own course around it and kind of cultivate. And you set yourself up to look and talk like a clown a lot of the time. You can say you don't care or you don't care what people think, but you'll care when people around you undermine the worth of your sense and conversation when you talk like that, like it's supposed to be true. Gamers, casual, competitive, professional these days take it for granted so easily that you can just become the best of the best or become a force of nature of your own craft when it wasn't always like that or had that image. This is how it actually was 15 years ago. Like, there was no market for competitive or even barely casual scenes like that. There still really isn't these days, before or after COVID's reach for of offline setups and whatnot and social scenes and shit. Like how the stereotype really began, like what Smash Community spoke of and kind of exaggerated, that is kind of sort of how it began for a general totality of most competitive games is where it just started out of a guy's mom's basement. Most part, for this case, for me, it started out of my friends, for example. And that was every time I got to visit my friend, I had a chance to maybe take my console over there. I had to take my PS3, and then he had a Nintendo Wii. I had bought a couple of Wii games like Skyward Sword and like a Wii U sports game or some shit. And then we just hook it up and then we just play back and forth in order to explore our options, as you will, between PlayStation and Nintendo Wii. Let's see, fast forward a little bit. That was 2007 2008 when that tournament happened. So later 2008. Let's fast forward a little bit, right? After that tournament and graduation, I sought to build on that notion some in going to college. And the game plan was to try to find, for me, it was trying to find a competent woman for myself amid seeking a steady education, yes. But, hey, life happens, life crashes around you, and you kind of have to adapt or drown with the situations. And what had happened at that time was a few of my close cousins were really sick at the time. And those in charge of care sought a circle in order to maximize our efforts for caring for our loved ones and our elders, and just caring for them better by putting our heads together, or the attempt thereof in doing that. Between the vague intellectual and the bluntly understandably ignorant, not really a healthy mashup per se for the pursuit of medical understanding, but it's a set thinking to work around and to extend preservation. Being around my mom, my uncle, and my mom's friends for so long, I could absorb some medical knowledge always being tossed around and just brush up on my thinking, so it's never going over my head or always have to have it dumbed down for my sake. I can kind of meet the doc at their level. There is a point in where I'm getting to this as we go along. And then, for those of you guys out there, sick in black people's term is the reality of end-of-life care, or situations from old age, or accidents, or people's demons catching up with you, resulting in irreversible things going forward from an identified point of no return that has a ripple effect that you don't think about till it is too late. And it usually does leave a void in people's lives. Something that affects many people in the ripple effect, because it's something that's usually talked to, or someone that's relied on by many people for your time and convenience, or even love and attention to detail and caring for family. A glue in many people's situations, for a lack of a better term. And for the audience out there, you know who these people are in your environment or in your general circle that you see every day or every other day, or even people that you used to see every day. Those are the type of people that I'm thinking about. You pick up the phone, they're there. They call you damn near every other day because it's a great time talking to you. Or they help you with problem solving to your solution with simple ass solutions. They're not always looking at the bigger picture. They simplify that shit. It's the good ones of a bad or antisocial bunch who probably just get caught in the crossfire. The good news is that the efforts in having that unified front was working and navigating on decision making better, saving money, time, travel, all around people's needs. The bad news was the set personal money issue after a time, and then the personal time divided, and being relied on for what I can interpret and not so much for what I can do. Some struggles I could just talk about to my best friend, but there were still mounting private setbacks amidst my own struggles here at home. How does all this affect me? Well, first of all, no money to go to college that I planned for, first of all. A means of transportation limited, and having to rely on others and a weekly inconsistent basis because I was in the process of finishing my learning permit at the time. I eventually lost my privilege of driving school and the permit at that time, depending upon my mom's shift schedule and my relatives' shifty and general crappy schedules. Family emergencies mounted against my better problem solving, so one by one, I was losing or would generally lose many things I had laid out for myself to do in the background that mattered to me, along with my family. The older generation, at least, admittedly not interested to my generation of people, but this is what it is now. Then efforts with another family member, with my grandmother, for instance, fell ill. And then along the fact of now we don't really have any money left over from health expenses to deal with that. And so more shit piled on top of shit. And it left the choices of just leaving them behind in order to pursue my better education, or just make everything vastly easier by focusing on healthcare with my mother and save money. Love and common sense drove my general decision making here, not really selfishness or the passion, even though I had the passion at that time. I had more than enough time to weigh it all out, but I settled on the logical choice so money can breathe and allow options despite the diminishing amount of them. Because I would like to try and event the further developing of a shit show if I can, rather than trying to add to it just for my sake out of selfishness. This was something where common sense had mattered more to me than following your dreams type shit. This is how you create nightmares in the chase of you following a goal or a game plan with diminished resources to even contest that future finishing point. You have to weigh out the reality of following a dream that may or may not be real or come into reality through college, or leaving with everything and coming back home to nothing with limited elements to show for it. My choice of family was clear for me, and so I gave up my education, or the higher level education that I had, in order to help my family take care of the elder generations still, and my grandmother, all of what time that they had left. It's only in the future lens of now, like right now, or in recent years, would I change select parts of that pivotal choice that the 17, 18-year-old me made in those years. Knowing what I knew years later coming to light. Maybe I could have salvaged my college assertion, or the sharing of my goals and memories of people I love better. Maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. But it's a part of the journey that I do have to live with for my life, and I had to gradually accept coming to terms with that and understand that I have to be okay with that, even nowadays, because that shit that it's done. It's in stone. This is a part of your life now. There is no necessitation in trying to go back and turn back the hands of time just to change the inevitability of an outcome because you don't like it. Hold that thought, chat. And then I'll resume in a second. Your lens assessment. Alright, after the darker layer had passed, the next layer was the pastime, right? Like with a lot lost, family, the elder family generation gone that I enjoyed talking to, barely finding work or whatever little half-assed piece of work I could find. Family issues and losses were still mounting, with people's health catching up with it's just a lot of old people dying at one time that it just became a really depressing veil on my transition into adulthood that I got to live with for the rest of my life. And so, what did I gain out of all this? Sadly, a lot of free time. And so amidst free time, I just delved into gaming. Stereotypical as that sounds, but that's what we do. This was a lot of offline gaming, mind you. It was the easiest reach of doing any general video game. And due to dial-up creating the trashiest environment affordable to experience with the general internet superhighway, I had always visited my friend's house generally, and my friends and their folks always invited me back for a lot of good times with pizza sittings and some movies from time to time at home, or we went out in order to watch a movie, or just our general gaming time. I thank their moms all the time. I thank Pat's mom and Thomas's mom and Evan's mom and dad for a lot of those good times, and just honestly letting me bring my PS3 system over. They are the goddesses. My best friend and one of my cousins wanted me to do more with that writing aspect of this journey that I was doing originally in college, and to try and take it up a notch between finding the market for games to play openly or to try to advertise myself to see if the market can come to me. There was a lot of challenges in that effort at the concept's general face value. Think in retrospect here, like I said, I was taught that you could be anything you wanted to be. And this was a part of my goal. The problem was, again, no compass getting started. And so, okay, surprisingly, all right, this area of the pastime and recreation and business was something that can and does dabble in a lot of areas through society, both in its youth and in its modern day, being more visually known and established in society. And so I chose to pursue making the market for myself by marketing myself out by what I wanted to be. I chose to gradually pursue that with what I gathered back in college, and because I took a marketing course originally in college, which is what I have figured out when I was trying to learn more about branding. I just didn't get a chance to actually do more in the class of branding. But marketing in the terms of starting something for it to grow through like social media or email or content or paid ads sometimes. The awareness benefits, etc. Like how to invest in yourself and how to sell it, basically. Not for money, but for the engagement first, to know people want what you're selling. You have to market yourself like you are your own brand, actually. That was the hard part to it. And then amidst continuing to do my video games or play video games and shit, like, then there's the support system to it. People that believe in you and your worth. People that want you to succeed at this shit. People that will be here for the ups and downs you undergo. And believe me, there was plenty of them between money, games, people, communities, competing, teams and organizations, dealings, conflicts of interest. It's easier said than done, as not everyone who knows of this work, hollow as it was at the time that gradually became a vague, very vague reality, will support this, or even believe in you, or your worth or potential. Like, I was lucky somewhat at the time. I was vaguely lucky at first to have the one or two friends that didn't initially ridicule the likelihood of this happening, compared to the many others who did. I was also unfortunate in losing him very early on in the process once things did get started or did start to gain traction, when I got real internet and stopped using a lot of that dial-up crap. That's when the emotional roller coaster experience really began. My dream was laughed at a lot as a kid, even as an adult nowadays, because no one believed I could do it, or that it was even possible to do unless it was seen first, because seeing is believing. No one but one person honestly believed me at first, believed me at face value that this was something I could do. I told him I wanted to be the best video gamer in Maryland, and I wanted to try and make a profit off of this, or I wanted to make a difference using my talents. And my best friend believed me at face value. I didn't have to sit there and explain myself. He believed I could do this. Patrick believed I could do that. He never questioned that it wasn't possible, because we believed that with enough dedication, anything can be sought or achieved. He stuck with me to help me through a lot of good times and a lot of bad times, figuring out how to make this come into reality each day, or what directions I gotta go to stay educated in this field, kinda, while struggling to hold my own, or and hold down work, or take care of family with what's left of my family. And the two of us together, I got more goals done in the year that me and him put our heads together, compared to the 5-6 years prior to I was doing this by myself. Like, this was clarity I rarely had, that I was blessed by God to have with our time together. Having found the right path for me to go in, we could accomplish something, and we could almost accomplish anything together. He was there with me for a long while and helped me through so much in finding myself and finding the correct path and finding the journey and founding the journey that I sought here in going deeper into potential professional gaming. And I was with him for a good deal of time up until his death in 2014. It was from complications of the disease he was born with. And for the curious onlookers, it was a muscular disease called myotonic dystrophy. You feel free to look it up. It's called myotonic dystrophy. It's a deterioration of the muscles as you get older. Like, building up from that, it was a long process trying to accept like a lot that had happened that month. And you're wondering, like, okay, why does one person make a difference like this? Well, because Patrick was a difference maker to this work and to this clarity and a set direction from that committed point that the kid me couldn't understand compared to the adult me now that understands that I was very thankful to have a guy like that in my life. Moving to Gaithersburg, honestly, was just a bitter adjustment that he made easier as we started our work, because he was literally like right next door to me compared to when I was in the countryside before we had the whole family issues and ended up losing the original house and all that stuff. We were originally like a whole county apart, and so the process of trying to visit him was very complicated. It takes me more so 20-30 minutes to visit him, where I visit him by convenience of going into town on the weekends, compared to that brief time, that whole year where I was here and he was here. I literally can just walk next door to him, basically. Is literally the level of convenience and the difference of convenience that it was. Like, the input that I had from Patrick was invaluable. From someone that knows what they're talking about or learns with you as you're learning. We're learning this together. A friend that I can brainstorm with, I can confide into, I can cross-reference, I can vent frustration, I can share happiness, I can share sadness. He was all of this. He was my best friend. I was thankful for his love and his understanding and his inclusion that made this whole frightening journey less confusing and more warming. And his father and his family also know that. Still do. He was a huge part of my circles in many affairs, and I lost a lot when I lost him in those days. I can't understress that enough. Hell, my YouTube channel was actually founded by the both of us. That's why I fought so hard to make sure I can keep that thing here. I still do. The layers in learning how to navigate, it only looked confusing at first, but with the knowledge to it, there was a vague light that I could follow just for me to see that starts to paint the picture of how entertainment and gaming affects the county that I'm in, or the area that I'm in, like how it affects people, and it inspires you to want to either make more out of it, or it does something to try to resonate with you and have it as an incorporation of entertaining places or places of entertainment or worth that, again, is in select places. It wasn't something that was abundant, because you have to think about games, you have to think about consoles, you have to think about marketing to the people or to the correct audience, what type or genre that you're looking at, there was always a reason why this was so scarce. And this was in trying to find offlines, mind you, not trying to find anything online, because online wasn't something that I could do at that point. Not until the beginning of 2015. Don't mind me, Chad. I just need a break. And so in 2015, our luck changed again when we did ditch dial-up finally, and went into Verizon Internet, Verizon Fios. It's still what I have now, 10 years later. Verizon Fios. With that and a so-called new phase of things that would then happily but slowly surely, it would happen slowly but surely, I was able to set up kind of into doing video games online now, here at our home for the first time ever. That way I can actually be online at my own pace. I didn't have to worry about being at somebody else's house and whatnot and having the entry process and all that. I can just go on ahead and just enjoy video gaming at my own pace here at home. It was nice, but it was also depressing in the bigger reality, because I can't really enjoy this with my friend anymore. I can't wholeheartedly enjoy gaming at its core value anymore, because the main purpose in why I was doing this, he's gone now. But depressed as I was for a time, wanting to go into this alone, because that's the way it was going to be for a long while in my adult life, I went on ahead with it, and I just persevered. I kept going. Like, the other people I know and the other friends I had weren't around to really know like how in depth I was with gaming, or they weren't gamers at all, or knew hardly anything about the premise of video games like that, or what I was doing at the time, or what I was working towards in order to try and make that a profession. Between fighting the ignorance of a lot of my acquaintances and people that I grew up with at that time, and then fighting my mother at that time, and trying to make common sense and trying to hold down a real job, quote unquote, and not waste time or waste my life away playing video games. There's already a lot of continual headaches and juggling of emotions between sadness and anger and rage and solace that I'm trying to juggle mentally, that the video games are helping physically to express. And I had to suppress the reality or likelihood of not really having someone around that gets me, or the reasons why video games matter so much to me, without me needing to explain it 100 different times every time I meet somebody, or people just casually keep forgetting. It's a time where being an adult sucks shit, but it's the hand that you're dealt, and so we'll just deal. That's how we do these things. And so I tried my hand at the early stages of YouTubing, right? Tried my hand at YouTubing things, and since I found out gamers and YouTubers can be the same people, you don't have to be two different people. So I went on ahead and just took that route in order to try and see if YouTubing can help the expression of my journey, so I don't have to always feel like I have to explain shit to people. And just tell the story of just getting to wherever it is I'm going in life through these things. And the first few games I started into was, Call of Duty Ghosts, Black Ops 2, Transformers War for Cybertron, Borderlands, Kingdom Hearts, Fall of Cybertron, and Destiny. With this, so the journey online would begin. A journey that then slowly but surely became my own personal hell, whether or not I wanted to admit it. A lot was learned not just about me and my ambition, but also the company that I kept at that time, or that I would keep. And also the company that I may so seek, how they develop, and how much this would then cause both a positive and negative expansion of opportunity to the next gaming plateau not yet seen, only felt. Only like much pain, misery, disappointment, being undermined, the emotional grief, discredited accusations, brief contentment, and burden across 3.5 years straight of constant online competitive exposure. Massive success briefly followed for a time, but at what price, I ask myself sometimes. Through the process of still dutifully committing to high-level gaming, or the attempt at high-level gaming, a massive negative emotion would start to bud that only I had myself to blame. And I'm still paying for it now. You see, being blamed or underestimated or undervalued, and this came from the continual and constant exposure of online communities and people online. And you get to meet the underbelly and the inconsiderate, selfish underbelly that is online gaming at its core value. There's some communities where you see this bluntly. Others you see it over time. But being blamed or underestimated or undervalued constantly drives a person to want to take action against absolute dog shit that blames and degrades others. Like absolute shit that only respects the strong and outcasts the weak, or isolates them is a better term. Like when you hear ignorant racist crap constantly, or you play like shit, or you're trash, or some weak ass or new player, is when you begin to take yourself highly seriously. Like it's when a game is no longer fun and it's not a game anymore. This is now a chore or a duty to yourself to not lose to human garbage. You start to just hate everybody you meet because you can't be yourself or do what you want to do without it always being an issue to idiots. You start disregarding your own well-being at times or personal interests, and it creates a vast toxic commitment. Like I have to be angry all the time, or to do something, or to be happy about nothing. You dedicate so much time and literally go that far every day or every other day to ensure 100% that you're not getting disrespected by people you thought you trusted, or people you thought you believed or invested some type of acknowledgement towards. Like, ensure 100% that nobody will ever disrespect who you are or what you believe. Like, this is where you begin to do a lot of great things. And you start striving really high, but you do a lot of great things not out of love or respect for video games or for the communities at those times, and unfortunately. But you do those out of hatred and spite for the pieces of shit that play them. And it's such a... Hang on. Like I was saying. But it's in those instances where you take yourself seriously and it's not a game no more. And you start achieving a lot of great things because you're doing a lot of damn near inhuman or superhuman feats on a video game or on a platform that you can't do normally. It's what's driving you is negativity or hate, not always love, unfortunately. And for me, that was the case, where it was not love driving me to do so many great things or drop massive KDs or do a hell of a lot of quote unquote impressive things in a short amount of time. All that came at the cost of just a lot of constant misery that I did bring upon myself. This was at the cost of just proving a point that I just became so tired of always listening to trash sit and talk about how good they are, how great they are, and put down other people when they're just trying to sit and enjoy the same game you are. And every community had this that I was going to, and I hated it so much. And I just disregarded a lot of my own personal health. Like, was it such a crime to want to be yourself? Yes, it was. Yes, it was a crime to be myself. It was a crime to just naturally play what the hell I wanted to play and do whatever the hell I wanted to do. It was a crime to have your own identity because it differed from the norm, from what people instructed you to do, what people painted out the picture of you as, and nothing else. I feel that way and I felt that way because a person was always scared of what something else can be if it's left unchecked. And I kept that in mind. Fast forward a little bit into the future here, and then you got Transformers War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron. That was like the two main journeys that I was on at one point or another through the mid 2010s. The TF community still lives on in the gamers. The Transformers community is a thing of the past now, to some degree. I retired that work for the sake of a higher competitive calling, which was Destiny. I appeared only on request at that point. Once it got past 2019, 2020, I appeared just mainly on request. And I moved on to other games and other platforms. There was no longer a competitive journey that I sought in Transformers. So my channel at that point, by the process of elimination, had little survival chance now since I wasn't in my lane anymore, quote unquote. So when you're not in your lane, that's the real test of merit in how loyal your fans are, how consistent they are, and still supporting your work or supporting the channel and all that stuff, which would test me. And that's fine. A lot of past Let's Plays that I had at that time were on hiatus or finished until further notice. I briefly left Destiny altogether at April 2017. That was Destiny 1. But I had returned to Destiny activity, competitive activity, in February of 2018, following a series of events and a change in direction to the narrative in why I wanted to go ahead and go back to Destiny 2. Hold that thought on Destiny 2. Clan Tact, which was the group that I had founded back in 2015 on Transformers initially, Tact, that was Terrain Adaptive Combat Terrestrials, had evolved into Tact Inc. It's a private gaming community now. It's the same as it was before, from being a general gaming clan on PS3 to being a private gaming community on PS4 originally, before PS4 communities were removed. And then it moved to being a Discord community, where it just became a private Discord community. And it's upgraded from Tact Inc. to Tact City. Same premise. Just changed the name presentation in order to reflect its next pending direction. All of its rights and what's left of it with the people were now tied directly to me and my activity. And then those days, even still nowadays, I'm kind of like a wandering cowboy or warrior, wandering online warrior, Ronin, whatever you want to call it, that's looking for that next big thing in order to ascend so that I can try to achieve greatness once again, or I can come close to it. A dream can only flourish if I stay at it still, and that's what I aimed to do. I wanted to reach a new competitive scene, learning new techniques and tactics, looking to face the best of the best, or those labeled the strongest, or fancy themselves the best, even the false prophets, and then just see how I stack up compared to my own growing ability. Hey, Double Bravo, welcome through. Hey guys, welcome to my podcast. I'm so blessed you guys came through. Sit tight. Let me know what you guys were playing. I'm finishing up my stuff. And nowadays, like I said, I'm kind of like a wandering online warrior, looking for the next big thing in order to achieve greatness again. And how I achieved greatness the first time, I'll actually sit and I'll go over that in a second also. But I'm not going to delve too much on it because, again, that delves back into the Transformer and the Destiny rabbit holes of yore that are already on the channel. And so I can just link the premises of those videos to better explain my past with those games and how I made my rise to fame, quote unquote, and why the channel was able to grow off of that prosperously. This was a test of a lot of faith that I didn't fully have in myself, because it took a lot for me to continue to have the devotion and belief in myself, because I wasn't sure if there was anything out there or anybody, or even if any of my friends really believed in me like that. And I just had to try and keep believing in myself. Hollow as it was, but I had to keep convincing myself that this was the way that I wanted to go. Because there was a lot I had to get used to continue this and just get back on the horse after Pat's death, because so much of that decision and joy that came from it, that line of work, which is, it's basically a profession now, it was with him. And so it's just finding a brand new way to stay positive and keep moving. Start with trying to get used to the cycle of excitement and disappointment, depressing as it was, and was still navigating proper decision making amidst a lot of continual foggy landscapes in gaming, or landscapes of uncertainty that are always moving. You always got to develop courage. You don't want to cling to appraisal or a people's appeasal like it's air to breathe, or I must be shocked at the thought of always being shunned. You got to say no to the charade of pleasing people in the world that we all live in. Like staying a prisoner. You don't want to stay a prisoner to the court of public opinion, basically. You got to be your own judge. It's your take and view, not influenced by another, so you got to own it. I was aware there's also a chance, or a high chance, I may not meet another person of that engagement or inclusion that helps better times ahead, but still I'd persist because it's what I sought to do for myself, that I have to conclude for the both of us. I'd be dishonoring or letting that one person down, thinking I'm doing myself a favor by quitting. I'm a planner person. I like to always be prepared for personal reasons, families and friends, good-natured or misleading or ill-intentioned, showed, and it's just easier to be prepared within reason. Don't tackle tasks in the dark if it can be helped. And taking care of me, moms, and my own shit while not having a general game plan always adds, and it just adds on every other day. Adds to the emotional roller coaster, figuring it all out, which is, it develops into a lot of different moods that I have every day. That's the only thing that is and isn't completely out of my control, is because I have a lot of constant moods every day because of the constant emotional fracturing that I am sorting out every day, or sorting out every other day. And while I wish for it to stop, I know that it is not going to stop. It's just a part of what it is I have to do in order to deal with my general adulting now. Like, gaming doesn't solve that. Talking about it does. You can picture how that imbalance with the general selfish antics of the average people I seem to end up being around on a somewhat daily basis kind of culminates. I can't explain the way my mind works because nothing's clear anymore. I just have to have an educated guess and just do it. And then we fast forward from 2020 to 2024. And did it all work out like a total of 10, 15 years later? Well, you tell me. Because I originally followed my goal when I was 16, 17 years old, back in high school. That was back in 2006, 2007. It's now 2024. Like, I became my own brand. Like, returning to the market aspect that I spoke on, the marketing in terms of starting something for it to grow throughout your outlets, how to invest in yourself and how to sell it. Being your own brand. Like, on my media and trying to go pro, I went this route for my own sake. Sold myself out as an average gamer, a social goer, peacemaker, content maker, tactician, a poet, a leader, a chill conversationalist. I like to 1v1 people for matchup experience, but also I like to keep learning to pass it on. Learn my goals reach by myself or with a team. Is there substance or value, or just see if what I do is good enough to be considered decent. Like, Destiny was the first time I came really close to achieving a lot of those bulletins, because I was actually gaining a small bit of recognition for what I was doing in Destiny, like sniping and raiding at that time, for years of strategic competitive building on armor sets and weaponry, casual and competitive, whereas the FGC territory concreted that movement through a lot of experience, camaraderie, and real recognition not falsified in the later years of the same push for the same effort based on the same premise, not the same cause and effect. And then you got your support system. Like, people that believe in your worth, people that want you to succeed at this, people that will be here for the ups and downs. It's a depressing thought all the time, because it goes deeper each year as I delve. And I feel outside, like Aswin or Straxus, Liam, Midget Cricket, or James, or Douglas, or even Realms are like the closest to really understanding how much I've felt about this work due to their own natural comings and goings, that could try to believe in my worth. Even if they don't deep dive like that or study findings or layered notes like that to the social aspect. These are people that could try to believe in my worth. The time and situation separate our engagements a lot of the time, so I don't really see them frequently like that as much as I would like to really talk to them and to counter a lot of the off feelings naturally. The flip side to that was delving more into my work to push sad feelings back and meet newer people and newer entities, which was another toss-up of question mark, thus exposing myself more to the negatives than positives, as I found out. Managing my work and my platform, there's a good chunk of great people to meet and enjoy, yes, but it's honestly just dealing with a lot more of the users, abusers, thieves, liars, prejudiced slanderers, and fake-ass people direct enough to be inconsiderate on a continual lack of accountability or appreciation. The common elements of a stereotypical gamer, more or less. That was another miscalculation on my end, trusting people, especially after a nice idea flourished. Having influence, I guess, is okay at times because my voice could be heard when it's convenient, but people flock to you solely because of that, not to know you or have anything to do with you, just to use you a lot. It triggered a deeper feeling that questioned my support system when I'm really questioning worth from the worthless, and I just simply need to rendezvous with those main people like James or Doug or Realms or Aswin or Luke, and just reassess my circles with people. Because it's the reality of the continual imperfection of people that is making me hate people. And then you look at the results, right? Like the results, I do have achievements. I just don't have a title to my name or a championship. I do have a Metafy to share, coach, and instruct with that I found during 2019 times on Destiny, but it didn't take off fully till my last year's till last year's huge FGC thing that I cashed in on with Pride FGC. And then I picked up by a pro gaming league team, previously and a current one. As long as I'm making top 8s or I'm doing good placements, I do get some compensation that helps with my hustle. I've added my notes across numerous games and encounters to begin studying general positive physical and mental health of video games, to better advocate for the communities as a proper pro status activist that actually lived all this shit, still living it to this day. The end game, I set it for myself once my time striving heavy across the realms or communities has passed. It's something I feel creates a decent conviction that was needed to buckle down on guidance that I needed to provide for myself with a light to a steady darkness that's always looming. Like, there's no compass for this shit still. Like, you just have to believe that you know what you're doing and that you're a master of your craft. Whatever that is at this point. Or was at that time. I got this far having thought out, educated, and informed guesses is how I got this far. Not actually knowing the thing. I got to show myself through a lot of doubt and in the background that I'm firmly convinced of what I saw that can make change in that right image that I seek through video games. The change that I seek to make through the course of playing video games competitively all these years is that I want to just be a people's champion. I don't want to be any type of world-renowned champion or state champion or shit like that. I just want to show that I'm a people person and that I can be a people's champion. Like, sometimes I do godlike shit. Other times I am just shit itself. I am not the perfect individual. Nothing about me I feel is really perfect or proper. I struggle to do a lot of simple things every day when it comes to video games because I always have to constantly stay on myself, and I gotta ride my own ass in order to make sure that I stay on top of training, or I stay on top of bread and butters and simple consistencies that after 2 or 3 days it does fall off sometimes because it just doesn't feel like it's consistent, or I lose the consistency process. And there are a lot of times where I do feel like I have to come down hard on myself, like very hard on myself. I'm basically my own critic for the premise of self-consistency and preservation. Because the art of trying to get to the professional level or close to it was out of necessity and almost an obligation to myself that I need to do this. It's not that I want to do this anymore. I need to do this because a lot of time, love, attention, and detail was put on this venture to want to make it into a reality that I can either live off of, or that I can prosper off of, or that I can tell the story of, I lived this. I was able to live all of this and build a dream that is worth something very valuable now, when originally it was meaningless in society. It had no societal norms to it. Compared to now, it is vaguely a part of the culture of social media. And I understand that the implications of that also change with its emotional value. That I lost only in the recent years, in reaching a point of fatigue after like 17, 18 years, compared to like when that spark was like really, really hot on the pavement back in my younger years, back in the 2007, 2008 years. And then I'll go ahead and reach my my general wrap up point, because that's going into my past all the way up to the present without delving excessively heavily into the areas. Now, the areas in general, I'm going to close off with, okay, achieving greatness the first time. I achieved greatness the first time, one, through Transformers, and two, through Destiny 2, both with Trials of the Nine and in Trials of Osiris. In Transformers community, long story short, it was the art and being a voice for the little man in the community, standing up to tyrants and dictators that use their clout and ego to guide the narrative of the strong rule and the weak die. And I continually kept opposing that for years against a lot of the older heads, that you don't have to be the strongest players on the team in order to still be the most effective player on the team. And that's where TAC kind of came into play, because TAC struggled for years to be relevant, but it also was able to succeed at being relevant as being like a continual underdog clan that can make the matches count when they need to, and can be a really big force to be reckoned with when it's got its back against the wall. On the flip side of that, I was also known for doing a lot of one-on-ones, because I found it preposterous that the founders of many past clans were known as great warriors, but never dabbled in the art of one-on-ones or personal combat and warfare. And so that's why I called them out on this. I was like, dude, I could literally spend like a whole generation or two literally fighting monsters you deem good, or that you think are good by Reddit standards or GameFAQ standards, since these were all keyboard warriors, because we were all keyboard warriors back in those days in the Transformer years. We all basically sit there diddly-dee-dee-ing on some fucking GameFAQs and Reddit, talking about the best players on the game of this generation, the best players of the game in that generation, the best class specialists, the best weapon specialists, team leaders, clans, clan leaders. Man, I tell you, all the shit we talked out of our ass in those years. But we were all keyboard warriors, just trying to make it, honestly. And so my bet was that I couldn't honestly spend my whole time 1v1ing people of my generation that are considered good, quote unquote, and people of the old generation that are considered good. Old generation was 2012 to 2015 at that time. So by the time I came on board and did the online thing, I had to do a pretty big catch-up game in order to find a lot of people that were out of my generation, which is fine with me. That was all a part of the challenge that I wanted and appreciated embarking on. And that's basically it. I spent like 2 generations worth on WOC and FOC, even through the modern generation, which people say the quote-unquote third generation. I spent all that time 1v1ing people for years, all over the world, on those games, in order to prove that I was one of the best. Either that I could beat them all, which I couldn't beat them all. It's like half and half. Honestly, I'd say it's probably like 60-40. Or I can make a name out of myself by just having this as my general profession. I'm that guy that 1v1s people, which I vaguely succeeded at. And then I became known as the Tactical Destroyer, since there was always like that next day of the week, or who's Rod fighting this week. It was something that eventually the panels all looked forward to seeing who my next guest opponent was going to be that I'm 1v1ing. unfortunately for me, a lot of the old leaders took that opportunity to also just keep nitpicking at what I'm doing right and doing wrong, even though they can do no better because they never took the time to one-on-one people. They just have their flunkies one-on-one people. People that come and go through my clan and my organization, they don't have to do that. They can literally just one-on-one. They can literally just fight me one-on-one. I'm always open to fighting people because I'm always open to the process of learning myself. Just as much as I was teaching people and instructing people how to survive, I was also still learning my own right, and was more than happy to also teach people how to better defend themselves on the game of Transformers and still play the general combative art of 1v1ing and destroying my enemies myself, one by one. Both of the old generation and the new generation, both. And 2 was Destiny. That was honestly trying to come up through the scene, starting from where I picked up at last on Destiny 1's end, which ended very depressingly, and picked back up again on Destiny 2. Originally, I just came over here during the beta. I came over there during the beta, Destiny 2, in order to enjoy my time, which was then exacerbated more by a friend of mine wanting to do more. And the journey went in numerous different directions that you'll have to see to believe. And so rather than me tell you, I would rather go on ahead and link you. At this point, I would like to go on ahead and refer you to my thesis video on Destiny and my whole synopsis of Destiny from 2017 to 2021. This is Destiny 2. That goes over my whole journey in Destiny, from a casual reinvesting in the game to a competitor seeking to try and reach the lighthouse at Trials of Osiris by the time Trials came back, to a failed master of my craft through Trials of the Nine, and I had to redeem myself by trying to get to Trials of Osiris. Like, for me, looking back at it in the retrospect, and also that Destiny VOD for the synopsis, I'll link here at this part too for the VOD once this is live. The art of trying to be the best gamer in the world, or be the best gamer in Maryland, was from the premise of the obligation that I entrusted myself with doing at my own leisure to ensure that it was still fun to do, and the obligation of my friends, past and maybe even a few of the ones of the past that have come around and have understood why I feel so passionately about this. But the goal is to understand that it was a self-obligation and destiny-fulfilling obligation to make this dream come true for myself, and a sense of contentment in doing what I love to do, potentially getting paid for it, and there's still more that can come. To a degree, I feel like I have that now, but it doesn't completely feel real because of a lot of the sacrifices along the way in order to achieve it. Like, in some senses of the game grid, between either Dragon Ball or maybe Injustice or quote-unquote Destiny, because Destiny doesn't really have pro players anymore. They just have competitors of interest, or casual stars and shit, or comp figures. Like, in the terms of Injustice and Dragon Ball Fighters, maybe because I know the game so well, I could be considered a semi-professional player in some people's eyes. In other people's eyes, I'm just a person of interest that people casually do and don't know when it's relevant, or when my branding is relevant. But that's another layer that came out of a lot of this journey, in what feels like I've accomplished a decent chunk of it in realizing that part of the dream. And then I was also able to give back in founding my own event circuit. And that's where I founded the Iacon battle circuit, which was my own event ring. For those that want to know where the Iacon battle circuit came from, I'll also link the video where I talk about that, because there was a time one of my champions also asked that same question about where the Iacon battle circuit originally came from. I can go over that too. I'm just not going to talk on that here because, again, it would be a sense of redundancy. So, I feel this generalizes me as a whole without delving in a direction too strongly one way or the other. And to share with you the start of everything that I had written about years ago, and then shifted to content making in order to better share the story. Content making in the terms of like sharing me and the persona, both that are me, Rodimus and myself. That duality was better expressed over the years, I feel. My rise to fame coming from years and years of fighting challenging, strong players or people of interest, community figures, other online warriors more degenerate than most, names on leaderboards or on the internet, leaderboard grinders, or the ping abusers, the clout chasers, upcoming players, professional players, false prophets, you name it. I've more or less probably gone one-on-one with the type somewhere in the world. Also, it is a shadowing effect and a shadowing effort fighting the norms of each game's community ecosystem that I've traveled. The art of intelligence and creativity, challenging the conforming aspects of the social norms, to defy the you're either special or you're not, or you are special but society tells you you're not, oppression in community conformity, to fight biased elitism head on because it's a psychotic abnormality once it's clutched, to have control over the masses in those communities, or even how communities respond only to oppression and not salvation, yet hypocritically assure you otherwise in a colorful brainwashing effort. While the top of the food chain is not totally in the wrong to hide it for graceful reasons to opportunity, they are highly and morally in the wrong for imposing a continual hoop jump effort to see proof of exception to enter a quote-unquote higher state of normalcy. Not being allowed to express your true self because for fear of being exposed or being outperformed is the shadow undertone. And there's been plenty of times and plenty of efforts where people will get to tell you what makes you special and what doesn't. Ask me how I know, And by my efforts in always continuing and seeking a fight against the standard, in differing ways, of course, I prove that despite feeling like you're in a box, there's always a way out. It's always the darkest before the dawn. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Always. Never give up. My goal in seeking Maryland's most powerful gamer, maybe even being a professional gamer, being a pro gaming activist, being an agent and voice of change for my district and their entertainment or joy. I want to look to my nieces and nephews to tell them that I do this video gaming thing for a living, that I occasionally get paid for, or that I'm actually helping people across the world through this. And those guys can be proud of me. Building this dream for many years, I have to keep going for those that died or that I lost along the way, helping me to achieve this dream step by step. Avoid the negativity, spread positivity as I go, even if I can't always be positive with myself. I gotta reach success to know that I achieved it wholly, and I have to face the good and the bad in myself all the time in order to make sure I keep on the right path. Facing all those families and the memories of better times is better suited when you have success at the helm going forward. I'm good here. If you got this far, type Autobots in the comments section. I look forward to the next topic discussed when the space bridge opens up again. Stay informed, stay happy, and stay in the know. Till all are one.